With Mitt Romney naming Paul Ryan as his running mate, once again, the nation's finances are taking front and center. I'm Jill Schlesinger, CBS MoneyWatch.com. I'm joined by Jack Otter. Jack, Paul Ryan was the architect of the Republican budget, and it's pretty interesting because we've got a lot of information about it. What's the best part of that budget?
I think the best part is that he brings the debt and the deficit into sharp relief and says, look, this is a really serious problem. We need to go about solving it. His way of solving it, of course, is radical. It annoys a lot of people, but at least he's saying, look, this is a problem we've got to deal with.
And you know what the problem that I have with it is that as much as I like to say there's some real good specific stuff, there's stuff that's left unsaid. So he says, okay, I'm not going to touch Social Security. I'm not going to touch defense. But he kind of leaves out the part that's important. So what are you going to cut? You're going to cut taxes. That's great. How are we going to pay for it? Is it going to be the mortgage interest deduction? There seems to be a lot of stuff that's left out of it.
Exactly. In fact, he's left it to the Democrats to define the carnage that's left after his cuts, which I don't know if that's really a good idea because they're saying, hey, you're going to lose X, Y, and Z. Maybe you wouldn't. He maybe ought to come forward and say, here's what I'm going to cut.
And I'm wondering, in the big picture, politicians just have a hard time dealing with all of these issues. What's the deal here?
Sure. So the way I look at this problem is there are really three components. There are taxes, there's spending, and then there's economic growth. And I kind of think of it as rock, paper, scissors. They all work together, and once you cut one, you might cause other problems and benefits. So for instance, if you slash spending right now, that would actually harm economic growth, contrary to what some politicians say. Look, GDP, one of the key components is government spending. In the long run, yes, we got to get government spending down. But you slash it tomorrow, you slash growth, and we could actually go in recession. You know, if you want to be negative about it, compare it to a drunk. You go cold turkey, the guy gets hurt before he gets better. So that's where we stand right now. And I think the Democrats are willing to point that out, and they're willing to point out all the problems that you'd get by cutting spending, the carnage, they call it, among lower income people. But what they don't really want to focus on is this growing debt and deficit. So what you need is somebody to be realistic, look at all the pieces together and say, here are the tough choices, but here's what we're willing to do to sort of make it easiest all the way around.
And you know, I think there's almost like a fantasy of every American is actually to have a politician to say what the truth is. And I think that here's the truth. If you talk to economists on both sides of the aisle, extremes, what they'll tell you is this. You know what? We are going to see taxes rise for most Americans. That's how it's going to be a big component of it. And on the other side, we are going to see a lot of programs that Americans love reduced. It's going to be shared pain. And that's just what we're all going to have to live with. I don't think that's what we're going to hear on the campaign trail, however, but we will be following it. Stay here at CBSNews.com, and thanks for watching.